Hi everyone, welcome back to the Creative Chef, and you are joining me on a bright and beautiful evening in Brussels on Saturday. So yeah, good to have you all here, and I thought for today I would address the topic because of a comment that was made in one of my videos. So it was interesting. This comment was on the issue of Fae energy, and it was along the lines of I've heard Fae energy or Fae is dangerous and or not good to go near, basically, but gods and goddesses are okay, something along those lines. And I found it a really interesting comment, and I don't believe any question is like bad or wrong or stupid or silly or anything like that, because we're learning, everybody's learning, and it's almost like in the area of tarot, like somebody asked me recently, like, I want to learn tarot, where do I start? I was like, you get a stake and you put it in the ground, and that's your starting position, basically. So it's a little bit like that, right? We get a deck or two, we get some beginners books. Today we have YouTube, today we have all these fantastic courses, and you get a notebook, and that's about it, really. That's the starting point. And so yeah, when this person asked this question, I thought it was a good question. At the same time, I had a conversation with somebody from the Tarot Tube community, and I don't really need to go into like what he said, what I said, and all these kind of things, but my response to something really made me think, actually, because they talked about a book and an author, and my response was, well, I really don't really like that book and that author because they just think in one way, or that's what I've heard. But then I had to add, that's what I've heard, and actually it's like a really broad assumption, and that actually brought it back to me. It wasn't about what they said, it's about what I said. And it's interesting because there was a question about the Fae energy and fairies and so forth, and then there was my discussion with somebody about something that I've seen and a presumption I've made. And interestingly, after that conversation, I happened to see a YouTube video from that author of that book and a tarot creator, which actually was opening and enlightening for me, actually, about their own views and their own principles and approach to tarot, and creating tarot as well, creating tarot decks, basically, sorry, I should say. So without further ado, let me just launch first into the whole thing around Fae and fairy energy. So I think by now all of you have guessed or may know that, and if you're new to my channel, maybe you don't know, so welcome. But I am British and I'm Indian, and on top of that, I've spent nearly half of my life in Belgium. So I'm also Belgian, and that doesn't make me an expert on anything, but it has given me a lot of experiences in different things. That's the best way I can put it. And my upbringing, my personal upbringing, is in a Hindu household, but going to Church of England school and then going to Catholic school. So by the time, I'm at this age, I'm always like it's like a sea of information, a sea of beliefs, sea as in SEA, by the way, an ocean of beliefs, an ocean of systems, an ocean of thoughts. Living in Belgium, it's very much Catholic here. The Catholic Church is quite predominant, but at the same time, there are many people who are like, don't do religion, prefer spirituality, and some people who are like, don't do religion, don't do spirituality, I'm agnostic or I'm atheist. So it's like a sea of information coming at me, and beliefs, and then on top of that, there's my own practices, my own experiences, and my own prejudices as well. Let's get honest here, right? So by the time I got to tarot, it was almost like this confusion of who says and does what, and what that person thinks and what she thinks and what he thinks. And what was really interesting to me right off the bat was there was something that I noticed from my own personal viewpoint, which was this dichotomy of Eastern views and Western views, and I couldn't quite place it. I was like, what's going on here? Tarot for divination, tarot for cultural reasons, tarot for personal development, and I was always like, okay, this is a soup here. And I quickly began to realize that, of course, we're all approaching it with our own viewpoints. And for some of us, I'm sorry, my cat's going crazy here, he wants attention, but for some of us, you know, it can be that where a person is raised and how they're raised is influencing and the trajectory of what they're seeing. And that's not always necessarily true. I'm doing a very broad brush statement here, so please forgive me, I'm not targeting anyone in that sense, but it's more kind of like what I picked up on. So let's go back to this whole Fae energy thing, because it's a really good question. And then kind of like, but gods and goddesses are okay. And that made me smile, because coming from like a Hindu culture, like where we have multiple gods and goddesses, of course, it really makes me smile, because it's like, right, so they're okay, but the Fae is not okay. And I'm not saying that this person was saying that's how it is. They're just posing a question as well. So there's no right or wrong here. Let's not beat up anyone. You know, I spent a lot of my time growing up in forests, as in like not being raised in a forest, but you know, if you're living in the UK, the school trips, go to the forest, go to a farm. Spent time in India, you're out in the, you know, you see the gardens, like we had like baboons on the balcony, basically. That's quite common in India. And then, you know, at 5 a.m. hearing a peacock, because there's a peacock in the local area, and that's what you wake up to. So like animals, different kinds of like flora and fauna, and then of course different religious beliefs, right, and cultural beliefs. And is it okay to wear clothes like this? Is it okay to wear silk on these days? You know, and all of these questions and so forth. And so coming back to the Fae and forest energy, when I came into tarot 6 or 7 years ago, I just shared it last week. One of the first decks that I picked up outside of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, because everybody has to have an RWS classic kind of thing, was, you know, the Paulina Tarot. You know, this I just showed it last week, so I don't necessarily have to go through all of it now. But I picked up the Paulina Tarot because it was this beautiful forest Fae energy, and it kind of like just reminded me of growing up, you know, in Northwest Europe kind of thing, but also a touch of that wonder of magic. And as some of you might know, I love the Druids. I love that pagan energy too. It's a really strong influence in my life, especially via the Church of England. As some of you know, there's a lot of strong connections there, and so yeah, I absolutely fell in love with the Paulina Tarot, because you know she does tap into this energy. I'm trying to get these cards out, and God knows what I'm taking up and putting down. Oh, okay, right, here they are. So yeah, so you know, there's a quick reminder of the Paulina Tarot. Now the most recent one is called Phantasma. It's borderless, and I think that the line drawings are still there, but a lot of people are saying it's even better because it's borderless and it's bigger, basically. So anyway, this was like a deck that I was really drawn to. And you know, so is Fae energy something dangerous? Is it a trickster energy? Is it going to lead us astray? We also have, you know, decks like Tarot of the She, and I remember when I picked up Tarot of the She, somebody said, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said, oh, you know, that's really strong, kind of like fairy energy, kind of Fae energy again. And I personally fell in love with it because it reminds me, I think the author and the artist, if I remember correctly, Emily Carding, I need to check, I think she's from Ireland, but I'm not sure. But these are ink drawings that were done on the spot, and that's how she came up with this deck. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's still one of my favorite decks. The artist has also inspired me to do my own ink drawings, actually, which I didn't even realize I could do until I've been just practicing a little bit in some art books that I bought. And yeah, like, you know, when a deck has inspired me to do art, for me, it's like, okay, it's doing something. But you know, these images might be like scary for some people, right? Like these glyphs and like what's going on here, and like in this one the sky's purple kind of thing. And I just didn't have that feeling. So it did make me think, like, I mean, this is Pan, right? So this is like our devil. For me, it's just, actually sometimes I've drawn the card like this and it looks even more interesting, right? I love that. But you know, it kind of like made me think, like, what's going on here? And I kind of like realized that my personal thinking about the cards is quite a mix of two. And rewinding back to the fact that I have also Indian origins and I come from a Hindu culture, we have gods and goddesses, but a lot of the stories that, you know, I was told at bedtime, that I read today, you know, where it's the Gita or it's the Mahabharata, you know, or the Ramayana, a lot of the stories where we have these gods and goddesses, when we really look at them, they are so much integrated with the demons, with the scary stuff in the forest, with the things that, you know, we don't want to address. A lot of the stories are also about battles and fights between humans, basically, and also, you know, demons taking over and all these kind of things. And the rough nutshell for me, I'm not saying this is what the religion is about. This is just more me being raised within a certain tone and a certain religion, basically. The way I always viewed it was that there is no real concrete, this is good, this is bad, let's all run kind of thing. It's always an evolving sense of storyline. It's always about, you know, who's going to be the victor, but, you know, there is a kind of like a Return of the Jedi moment, basically, where the baddie does come back again sometimes. But that is like the evolution. That is why we have avatars. That's why we have so many reincarnations in a way, because we are constantly in this evolution, right, of life or lives, as some of us like to believe. And so when I think of the Fae energy, I don't think trickster, scary, oh my God, it's going to lead me astray. I think about it, and there goes my decoration. I think about it more as kind of like, you know what, the Fae, my projection onto this energy that I feel in the woods, because everything's vibration, right, is really just showing me my own fears and my own either prejudices or judgments or fear of not knowing something. It's the unknown, right? And so, you know, if I see something and it scares me, more than anything else, you know, people are like, you know, let's do shadow work. When I see something and it makes me uncomfortable, it's actually not really the card. It's about the internal feeling within. Like, you know, when I look at kind of like cards, like when I look at, let's get a good one here, right? Let's get one that I might think, what is this? What is this? Let me give you one. All right, actually, let's just do this one. Let's do this. This is Dancer 6. This is Born of Joy. This is harking back to that Six of Cups energy. Personally, this isn't invoking nostalgia. This is invoking a sense of like giantess and then little kids around them. So I have no idea how to interpret this. But I have to sit with this a little bit, you know. Is this reminding me of like my own childhood and like the uncomfortableness there? Is this reminding me of the fact that I never liked being standing in the middle and having, you know, like people around me and all this kind of thing? So more than anything else, this Fae is not going to trip me up. This Fae is just going to show me, hark back to things that I'm not very comfortable with. This is Maker 10. This is Creator 10, right? So this is 10 of Pentacles. This is Kingdom Prospers. When I look at this and I look at the Fae standing behind him, more than anything, I personally am not in love with the fact that there's a woman, what I think is a woman or a female energy, a female Fae behind a man. Why is he on the throne? Like, why should it not be somewhere else? So this is not going to send me running for the, like, under my duvet or under my bed. This is more than anything going to sit there and make me think. So this comes back to how I feel about perhaps feminine issues, to do with equality, to do with kind of like balance. Like, you know, is it that the whole home is created when we have an image like this? Can I challenge that image? Can I challenge the feelings that come up around this? Does it go back to my own preconditioning as a, you know, when I was a child? You know, is it that she should be offering him that bowl? You know, why is it that they're all offering him that bowl? How is that? So yeah, if hopefully I'm making sense here, but the whole question around the Fae for me is just about a different kind of, like, you know, going into the woods, but seeing this kind of like leafy green, earthy air. For all the elements are actually there, especially with something like the Tarot of the She. All of the elements are there, but you know, look at this beautiful, gorgeous Empress, you know, and the glyph is on her stomach. So this is really going to that pregnancy, that nourishment, her holding that power. And I absolutely, this is like one of my favorite cards, one of my favorite Empresses, sorry. But you know, when I look at this, more than anything, it's just invoking certain feelings within me that are my feelings anyway. It's just invoking it, and that's about it. But that's my own personal viewpoint. The reason why I brought up the question that was originally asked and this whole issue was because it then taps into, of course, the second part of this video, which is to do with like, you know, myself having some kind of block towards a tarot creator and thinking, I think that they think in a certain way, I think they write in a certain way, I don't want to go there. And I knew myself that there was a little bit of me just not wanting to go further. So I did investigate a little bit further, and I'm glad I did, because I realized actually I just have a one-sided view. They're a great writer and they're a great creator. But more than anything, what I realized when I was listening to them, because they also do tarot tube, was that we have different cultures. And, you know, one of the ways that we can see divination and the divine and a personal belief, if one has one, is that it really is, or it can be seen as, I shouldn't say it really is, it can be seen as that spirit appears as I need them to appear, because that's what I need at that moment in time. And so some people say, well, is it all in your head? It could be. Some people might say, are you saying that there is a spirit and that like it's a god and we have to believe in it? And it can be that as well. What I do think about gods and goddesses, which actually harks back to this whole thing of, you know, gods and goddesses are okay, fae is not, is through a lot of changes within our world, and I think colonialism played a huge role, is that we've created concepts of deity within parts of the world, including Southern Asia, including also the archipelago of, it's not archipelago, it's actually a much broader set of islands, but basically Indonesia, the island of Bali, the island, sorry, it's gone out of my mind, the main island, and then Malaysia and so forth. Because they hold a very rich tapestry, by the way, that archipelago holds a very rich tapestry of Hinduism, which we don't see in India, which is why I like to always mention that there is a separate part of that whole religion which sits actually outside of India. And it's fascinating because of the history plays a huge role in it. But colonialism has had a huge and deep impact beyond just the slave trade. It has had a huge impact on religion and cultural beliefs and how we practice it, including those thoughts around gods and goddesses and deities. When we go back to what was believed in the 12th and 13th century, colonial period, but before the Portuguese came, before then the French and the Dutch came, is this this view around gods and deities, which was not so much of them on a pedestal. It's a relationship with man and a relationship with energy, which I think has been really strongly influenced by what was another set of religious beliefs and cultures. And it's not just colonialism, actually, I should be really careful here. There is also a symbiotic relationship between changes within our world. Let's say a lot of northern India was colonized very often by the Persians, by the Greeks. A lot of changes of influx of humans from all the way from the Greek Empire all the way into what would be now somewhere within the middle part of India. It's kind of like really like slicing India in half, and the northern part is really strongly influenced by religion, food, textiles, And also, of course, ethnicity. We also have a mixing of races continuing all the way over approximately 7 to 8,000 years, basically. So to then for me to turn around and say, that like it's all to do with gods and goddesses and so forth, and East and West, we have such a mix going on. So when coming back to tarot, sorry, it's such a ramble here at 20 minutes, but when looking back at tarot, one of the things that I can only say from my own personal experiences about what's right, what's wrong, good or bad, is it dangerous, is it going to trick me into something, is, and I've spoken about this greatly, but I want to come back to it, is our personal integrity and our personal moral compass is really going to be the anchor. That's what I feel. And to allow space for change and to allow space for growth, just as I have to, like, just because I've been exposed to so much religion and spirituality, I don't know it all still. I'm still having to learn. I still put that forward to anybody watching this, that allow yourself to think, maybe that precondition that this is good or that is not, or that's going to send me down a rabbit hole that I'm scared of, to allow oneself to explore, but know yourself, know your own integrity and your own moral compass. And the fact that, in this lifetime, we're going to have variety. We're definitely going to have variety of opinion and of beliefs. One of the decks, I'm not a huge fan of the book, but one of the decks that kind of like helps me to remember to be grounded actually is, and I'm going to now, first let me just show you the deck. There's the Mystical Shaman Oracle. Now, I'm not saying go out and buy this or anything like that, but the reason why I raised this deck is because I really like the images in this deck. If I can actually get it out of the box. I can't even get it out of its sleeve. Hold on a second. Now, this is by Vilolda, let's get the names right here again. Alberto Viloldo, Colette Baron Reed, and Marcela Lobos. The artist here is Rian Bender. And cover illustration, Jenna Della Grottaglia. Production artist, is Rian Bender, and I think the whole artistry is done by Jenna Della Grottaglia. I'm going to butcher her name now. But the reason I want to bring up this deck is not because this is the deck to ground someone and everybody should have this deck. It's because in my personal journey, as I was trying to remember to stay grounded, because I had come back to tarot, and I know when I come back to tarot, because I've done it before, then I've stepped away and come back, is to remember that I always need grounding tools. And we hear this a lot by a lot of tarot tubers, and I think it's agreeable. The book is okay, it's good, it's great, but what I really love is the images. So this is Jenna Della Cortaglia. I'm always going to butcher this poor lady's name. Yeah, illustrations by her. And I have a lot of these Hay House decks, but this is the one that I used because I really, really loved these tones. And no matter what religion I'm thinking in, or these spirituality I'm thinking in, these tones were really, really grounding for me. And what I would sometimes do is every few days is just light a candle and sit with one of these images just as a grounding exercise, just to allow myself to focus, to allow my senses to take in those colors and those images. If I had thoughts come up, maybe journal about them after, but really spending a good 4 or 5 minutes just sitting with these. And then no matter what I was doing in terms of a tarot reading or a study, or to try to get to grips with, the tarot itself again, it was just a nice way for me to connect with that earth energy. And for me, that's really important. I think, the example I always go back to is, and being raised within Hinduism, is that, we have with Shiva, we have, the Nataraj, what we call the Nataraj, which is basically Shiva in dance. And one of the great things, and if you can find the image very very quickly on the on Google, but one of the things that always comes back to the Nataraj is that one foot is on the ground, and it's just such an important way to remember to not fly off into the stratosphere. You know, it's something about nirvana where we can be taken off into this hedonism. And for me, that grounding is just so important. And I find that that grounding is also there in Western principles as well, in Judo, Christian, Islamic faith as well. It's not just within the Eastern, so I don't want to say that. It's not even just within Native American spirituality, it's within other religions as well. But there is always within religious traditions or within spirituality itself, when we take off all those structures and we just go back to very basic spiritual principles of connecting with our earth, you know. And I see it and hear it in so many of the forums. To walk on grass, I'm a runner, I love to run, to touch a tree. For me, sometimes because of the kind of work I do and the fact that first thing in the morning, you know, I've got time to pray, meditate, and then I've got to take a shower and go to the office. Basically, I'm not going to be hugging a tree on my way to work. It's not going to happen like that. So what can I do? And the thing I did personally was that I looked at these images and I lit a candle, and therefore, you know, tarot is accessible to everyone. As much as I'd love to live in the woods, I live in a city. So, you know, connecting to that earthy energy and being able to do our practice it can be possible anywhere. You know, I've heard people say lie down on the floor of your building or of your apartment, of your home, and that's a grounding exercise. But I go into, look at that gorgeous card deck. But I go, sorry, that gorgeous card. But you know, the more I hear comments, the more I believe that whatever background we have, and some people say, you know, I wasn't raised in any religion. My parents didn't believe in anything. It was almost like, you know, figure it out yourself, which is fine. All I can say is that, like, just find your own inner sense of what's healthy, and as long as that marker is there, and as long as we're building upon those principles and values and reinforcing them, the exploration, whether it's gods and goddesses, whether it's fays, whether it's Native American you know, images and sounds, whether it's the astral plane, you know, there's beautiful decks that such as the Star Child and the Moon Child decks, which are the astral plane. Whichever way we go, there's always going to be a centrifugal force that brings us back to our own star energy, I guess, our own sun energy and solar plexus. And that's, I think, for me, going to be the tip that I can give. Wow, so what a video. Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey for me in the last few days. And I'm really excited to discover new content for myself, basically. With a tarot creator that I wasn't sure if I wanted to explore with, but yeah, I do actually, and their work, and so yeah, I'm also learning. Thank you for joining me this week. I will see you all midweek for a topic that I really need to work on actually, so it's on my mind. And also at the end of the month I will be doing my month review into the Darkwood Tarot. So take care and see you all soon.